Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
I'm Elder Nathaniel of the House of Judah. Excuse me one moment. I'm Elder Nathaniel of the House of Judah Fellowship Church, here with Bishop Tazadak. We're coming before you this Sabbath day. First of all, giving all praises to the Most High, Ahaya, Bahashem Yeshaya, Wa Rawak. On this day, which most people around the world are considering the most joyous time of the year. We're going to get into that later. We have a lesson for you coming up. And we actually were just intending on coming on and letting everyone know that, hey, we're still here. We haven't gone live in a couple weeks. We've been facing some challenges, but the Most High has brought us through every one of them. We are happy to announce that we are now settled into our new location. We still have a few things that we have to get set up here. We should be ready to go, and we'll be back before you on next Sabbath for the next part. Was that part 11 for?
This is part 10.
Part 10? Okay, yeah, in our 12 Tribes series. So we're looking forward to it. We know you all are. And I want to thank you, everyone that's been supporting, everyone that's been showing up every Sabbath, sharing the lessons. I'm telling you, this past, I would say 3 months, we've had more activity and more involvement in these lessons than we've had over the past couple of years. We have really, because of your support and because of your viewership and sharing and things of that nature, we've seen great growth within this ministry. I want to thank everyone that's been there, that's been supporting both through your prayers and through your finances. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You have anything to tell us about?
The work is not finished,
right.
So please continue to support, subscribe, hit the like button, share it on all social media platforms with your brothers and sisters.
Absolutely.
We have brothers and sisters from the four corners of the earth, from all different walks of life, all different demographics,
right.
Israelite and Gentile, that are starting to wake up to the knowledge of this truth. So continue to help us continue to work through your support on social media, as well as continuing to keep the elder, I, and others that are doing the work in prayer. That's not just the House of Judah International Fellowship Church. That's any other church that's operating in the doctrine of Christ across the four corners of the earth. So it's those who are doing the work for you, and are putting in all of this time and dedication into making this happen. This isn't for us. Remember, it says that the greatest among you shall be your servants.
That's right.
So we are your servants. So when we're every day of the week, we're striving to get this work done, so that brothers and sisters like you have the opportunity to not only come into this truth, but to experience the fullness of the knowledge of this truth as well. Right. So definitely continue to support us doing the work, whether it be through your support on social media, but we also have tithes, donations, offerings right above here. So definitely all of it goes towards doing the work. When you send it, make sure that's the Cash App right there. Make sure you put what you want those funds to be used for. If you're a part of the church, mark it as tithes. If you're not, mark it as donations if you just follow over online. But your support is greatly appreciated.
That's right. Absolutely. Now, with that said, we do have a lesson that we're want to stream for you today. Now, what's interesting is that this lesson was absolutely was supposed to be uploaded last year. We ran into some technical issues and couldn't get it uploaded, but right now is as good a time as any. We have the Christmas deception. The Christmas deception. Do you want to paraphrase that?
I want to let brothers and sisters know prior to going into this lesson, because all the information will be shown and will be given during the lesson today. All the information will be shown and given during the lesson today. So, one moment.
Should be okay.
Okay. So all the information will be shown and divulged in the lesson today. But what we want to remind brothers and sisters who already know this information and are already in this truth to remember where you started and where you began in this truth. Yeah. A lot of us tend to forget. Where we came from as a people, and prior to this truth, and where our mindset was at that time, and we forget that we were once deceived. You forget that you were celebrating Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter and all of these things, and you begin to condescend and you begin to come against brothers and sisters so hard, forgetting how difficult it was for you to come out of this, because you came into the truth 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, to the point to where now you become callous and you have no empathy or no level of patience for brothers and sisters that are still in the dark. So remember, the scriptures say to correct one another in meekness and in love. So you bring forth this information. It's easier to draw someone with honey, right? Yeah. So, and a lot of times we're brash with the way that and remember, this is a very emotional time of the year for everyone, right? It's the most satanic time of the year religiously, as far as the practice of Christmas, but it's also one of the most emotional times of the year for brothers and sisters, where this is the time when your family comes around and everything like that. It's very, all your emotions are very tied into what this season is. So when you're presenting this information to people and you're trying to sort of show them the truth, the knowledge of the truth concerning this particular holiday, you got to be gentle. You got to not saying that you can't be austere, that you can't be straightforward, but you have to understand there's a lot of emotion and spiritual connection to this to this holiday season.
Yes.
So keep that in mind, whether it be your spouse, whether it be your cousin, whether it be your mother, your uncles, your aunties. Remember, if you were in that position at one time, how would you have liked to be? Would have liked that information presented to you?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And not only that, but it takes years to fully pull away, right? To the point to where when the season comes around, you're callous to the emotion. But we can't allow ourselves to become callous to the emotions of others. Right.
That's right.
So remember, for those, they'll come, but remember, keep those people in prayer and have patience, and have patience, because eventually they'll come around. But it's gonna be difficult starting out. But the information concerning Christmas and what it is and its history will be presented in a lesson. But I just wanted to send that reminder, and remember, support one another, exhort one another. Those who are in this truth and are pulling away from Christmas, we have to continue to keep each other in prayer during this time of season, because it's a very difficult season when the whole world, everyone is keeping this holiday. Right. And you're seeing everyone keeping this holiday, and it's very easy. The scriptures say, be ye in the world, but be not of the world. It's very difficult to live in a society where everyone's doing something and sort of going against the grain. Right. So keep each other in prayer, and keep each other in prayer, and keep yourself prayed up, because it's a very spiritual time of the year for the pagans around the world.
That's right. Well, without any further ado, we have the Christmas deception. The Christmas deception. So we're going to go ahead and leave you all and turn you over to the lesson. I want to thank you all again. Bless you. Have a wonderful, blessed Sabbath.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
First and foremost, I want to give all thanks and praise to the Most High, Ahaya, Bahashem Yeshaya, Wa Ruach. So, as we're all aware, this lesson is going to be on tomorrow. It's so-called Christmas Eve, right? And to most who celebrate Christmas, they say it's the most wonderful time of the year. But most of us who know what this time of the year is know that we consider it the most satanic time of the year. See, Christmas is a staple not only in American lives and mainly in the lives of Christians, but in the lives of many other religions and cultures around the world, right? And what's interesting is the spirit that comes around at this particular time. More spirits are tied to this holy day than really any other holiday that exists. People enjoy Halloween, they enjoy Thanksgiving, they enjoy Valentine's Day, but they absolutely love Christmas to the point to where even after you stop celebrating it, when you go into Christmas, you get that feeling. It's like something pulling you towards it. And when you can't celebrate it, you get depressed, or your feelings are tied to it. There's more suicides around this time of the year than any other time of the year, because your spirit is so tied into the so-called spirit of Christmas, right? And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how spirits are intertwined with this, because during this particular time of the year, the winter solstice is one of the high wicked time for witches, warlocks, and anybody who participates in witchcraft, which is why during this particular time of the year, we see more satanic and wicked rituals and different things like that coming out. Witches and all this kind of stuff sort of rolling themselves out. So we're going to get understanding on that, on those things as well. Now, as for Christians celebrate this day, believing or not, that they're remembering the birth of Christ, right? That's the understanding. Jesus's birthday is the understanding, right? However, even many of the Jewish community celebrate Christmas, even though they don't believe in Christ. Jews hate Christ. They despise Christ, but they celebrate Christmas. And they keep in mind, you can look at this up. This is common information that they do not reverence Christ, right? Even atheists join in on the fun on Christmas. Atheists, no belief in Christ at all. See, Christians tend to say, let's put the Christ back in Christmas. Well, we're going to find out today whether Christ was ever in Christmas. The question arises from these particular points that were just made concerning the other religions and cultures that participate in the Christmas holiday. How can all these religions and cultures be that are against Christ and hate Christ, or may not even believe in his existence, be so comfortable celebrating a holiday dedicated to him? How is it that if this holiday originates from Christ, from the birth of Christ, that all of these religions and cultures that are against Christ and against Christ's doctrine be so comfortable celebrating this holiday? The simple answer is Christian has nothing to do with Christ or the gospel of Christ at all. Has nothing to do with it. In fact, the only thing that has to do with Christ and Christmas is the name. That's the only thing these two have in common, right? See, many believe that Christmas got its start with Christ's birth. However, historical studies, as well as the Bible, show otherwise. The traditions of Christmas first began with pagan holidays that revolved around the winter solstice, such as Saturnalia and Norse in Scandinavia. The Christmas tree itself came from way back in ancient times, ancient Babylon under Nimrod. Now, this particular information that you're hearing, especially for those who are new and are Christians and don't have this particular understanding, we're going to get the evidence for you. And we're going to break this down piece by piece to show that Christ has nothing to do. Christ in the Bible has nothing to do with the traditions of Christmas. Right? Let's get Christmas origins. On history.com. On history.com, when you type in the history of Christmas, what comes up is this. And one of the parts here, it says, how did Christmas get its start? The middle of winter has long been a time of celebration around the world. Centuries before the arrival of man called Jesus, right? I'm going to read that again. The middle of winter has long been a time of celebration around the world. Centuries before the arrival of a man called Jesus, early Europeans celebrated the light and birth of the darkest days of winter. So this was a winter celebration. Keep in mind the winter solstice. Many peoples rejoiced during the winter solstice when the worst of winter was behind them and they could look forward to longer days and extended hours of sunlight. In Scandinavia, the Norse celebrated Yule, Keep in mind the Yule log. That's where that comes from, the tradition in Christmas of the Yule log. It comes from Scandinavia. And it's celebrated from December 21st, the winter solstice, through January. In recognition of the return of the sun, fathers and sons would bring home large logs, which they would set on fire. The people would feast until the log burned out, and which could take as many as 12 days. The Norse believed that the spark of the fire represented a new pig or calf that would be born during the coming year. So this is where this tradition came from in Scandinavia of the Yule log. Now, a lot of those in the Black community don't keep the Yule log. We don't. A lot of us, especially down south, we don't have chimneys or different things like that. But that's something that's usually kept predominantly in the white community, right? Now, when you look at where the roots of Christmas comes from, the first thing that this takes you back to is Saturnalia. A lot of people don't know what Saturnalia is. We're going to let you know. In Rome, where winters were not as harsh as those in the far north, Saturnalia, a holiday in honor of Saturn, the god of agriculture, was celebrated. Beginning the week leading up to the winter solstice and continuing for a full month, Saturnalia was a hedonistic time when food and drink were plentiful and normal Roman social order was turned upside down. For a month, enslaved people would become masters, and peasants were in command of the city. Businesses and schools were closed so that everyone could join in on the fun. Sound similar? During Christmas time, right? During Christmas time, everybody's accepted. The boss is nice. Yeah. You get time off. Yeah. Everybody get off of school. Yeah. The Christmas music is playing. Don't matter if you're rich, poor. The homeless dude who's been sitting on the side of the corner for the past 6 years, once a year gets $20 from everybody. Sounds similar, right? It says the Roman social order was turned upside down. For a month, enslaved people would become masters. Your boss whipping you around the office all year, but then Christmas come around and he like, can I get you a cup of punch? You've been a faithful servant this year. Why don't I get you some punch? You want a sandwich too? We got some Publix sandwiches in there. Right? Also around this time of winter solstice, Romans observed Juvenalia, a feast honoring the children of Rome. In addition, members of the upper class often celebrated the birthday of Mithra. We've gone over Mithra before, right? The god of the unconquerable sun on December 25th. Wow. So the Romans, that is the Roman Catholic Church, celebrated Mithra on December 25th during the month of Saturnalia. And that was prior to the birth of Christ. It was believed that Mithra, an infant god, was born of a rock. A rock. Now, keep in mind that the image that the Roman Catholic Church holds Christ in. See, they keep Christ in the form of a child, in the form of an infant. When you see all the statues of Christ, you don't see Christ as a grown man. You see Christ as an infant. Right. That's not by accident. And you see a black Madonna holding the child, right? That's not by accident. This is a tradition that's been being kept for thousands of years. That baby that you see in that woman's arm is not Christ. That's Mithra. For some Romans, Mithra's birthday was the most sacred day of the year. Nobody can wait till Christmas. When Christmas over, you can't wait for next Christmas. Leave your lights up for a month. Right? The most sacred day of the year. Now, this section is really one that caught my eye. It says, is Christmas really the day that Jesus was born?
Wow.
In the early years of Christianity, Easter was the main holiday, Easter being the Passover.
Mm-hmm.
The birth of Jesus was not celebrated, so they didn't even acknowledge the birth of Jesus, because in Israelite culture, the birth wasn't important.
Mm-hmm.
It was the death that was celebrated, not the birth. Right? In the 4th century, church officials decided to institute the birth of Jesus as a holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the Bible does not mention the date of his birth because it's not important. It doesn't mention the date of anyone's birth because it's not important, but it does tell the date of their death or the time period of their death. It says, unfortunately, the Bible does not mention a date for his death, a fact that the Puritans later pointed out in order to deny the legitimacy of the celebration. So you had people who were against Christmas, people who were sticking to the old Christian tradition. It says, although some evidence suggests that Christ may have Christ's birth, his birth may have occurred in the spring. Mm-hmm. Why would shepherds be herding in the middle of the winter?
Good question.
So that's something that we're going to address here in a moment. Was he born in spring? See, moving forward, it says Pope Julius I chose December 25th. The Roman Catholic Church's head, the Pope, chose December 25th for Christ's birth. Not that it was based around any form of evidence, but December 25th was a date that he was familiar with, a date that his God was familiar with. Why? It says it is commonly believed that the church chose this date in an effort to adopt and absorb the traditions of pagan Saturnalia festival. So they wanted the same feeling, the same aura in Christmas that they could get in Saturnalia. They said, you know what? Saturnalia gives you this feeling. There's this Saturnalia spirit going around. And if we're going to have to convert to Christianity, I don't want to give up Christmas in order to do that. I mean, I don't want to give up Saturnalia in order to do that. So you know what? Swap Mithra for Christ. And then let's insert that birthday. Let's give Christ Mithra's birthday. And now we can celebrate Saturnalia. We can bring in our Christmas trees. We can bring in the Yule logs, and we can celebrate this as if Christmas. Now we have the picture perfect mixture of Christianity and paganism, to where we don't have to compromise our whole country's favorite time of the year.
Exactly. Exactly.
See, you know that this has to be a spirit, that there has to be a spirit tied to Christmas when everyone in the world is on one accord behind it. You got Muslims saying Merry Christmas. You got Jewish people saying Merry Christmas. Atheists saying Merry Christmas. There has to be a spirit tied behind this thing. It says, first called the Feast of Nativity, the custom spread to Egypt by 432 and to England by the end of the 6th century. It spread like a wildfire. Why? Because as Christianity was growing, Christmas was infiltrated. Christmas was brought in. So as Christianity grew and spread, Christmas grew and spread with it. This is why Christmas would seem to be a foundational part of the Christian religion. Right? It says, by holding Christmas at the same time as the traditional winter solstice festivals, church leaders increased the chances that Christmas will be properly embraced. So they said, if we put this as close to the winter solstice festivals, the same winter festivals that all of these other cultures have around the world, if we put it as close to that as possible, if we put it at the central spot right in between all of these, then we have a more likely chance of reaching more people. Because keep in mind, the Jewish people keep the winter solstice.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, you know what? They keep winter solstice. So if we put Christmas right there,
Mm-hmm.
they'll be more likely to celebrate. Or we'll be celebrating at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
At the same satanic time of year. We're all celebrating at the same time. Whether you're intentionally or inadvertently, you're celebrating.
Right.
You're in on this particular satanic ritual. It says church leaders increase the chances of Christmas being that Christmas would be more popularly embraced, but gave up the ability to dictate how it was celebrated. Wow. By the Middle Ages, Christians had, for the most part, replaced the pagan religion. So see how Christmas grew. Mm-hmm. On Christmas, believers attended church, then celebrated. Then they celebrated raucously in drunken carnival-like atmosphere, similar to today's Mardi Gras. So you got these Christians mm-hmm. that go to church, and then as soon as they leave church, they go get drunk and party on Christmas. Each year, a beggar or student would be crowned Lord of Misrule. And eager celebrants played the part of his subjects. The poor would go to the houses of the rich and demand their best food and drink. If owners failed to comply, the visitors would most likely terrorize them with mischief. Christmas became the time of the year when the upper class would repay their real or imagined debt to society by entertaining the less fortunate citizens. Wow. The less fortunate citizens. The origins of Christmas. It sounds a lot like what we got going on here, mm-hmm. doesn't it? Wow. Now, as for the Christmas tree. Now, what a lot of people don't know about the Christmas tree is that the Christmas tree actually predates Christmas and Saturnalia. Mm-hmm. The Christmas tree actually goes as far back as to Nimrod. The Christmas tree was actually the first aspect of the existence of Saturnalia and Christmas. Mm-hmm. Right? God. This is history.com on the Christmas tree. It says how long before the advent of Christianity, plants and trees had remained green all year, had a special meaning for people in the winter, right? Just as people today decorate their homes with festive season and pine and spruce, fir trees, ancient peoples hung evergreen boughs over their doors and the windows. So you know those wreaths that people put around their doors? They were doing this back then. In many countries, it was believed that evergreens would keep away witches, ghosts, evil spirits, and illness. In the Northern Hemisphere, the shortest day and the longest night of the year falls on December 21st, or December 22nd is called the winter solstice. Many ancient people believed that the sun god believed that the sun was a god, and the winter came every year because the sun god had become sick and weak. They celebrated winter solstice because it meant that the sun god would begin to get well, and the evergreen boughs reminded them of the green plants that will grow again when the sun god was strong and the summer would return. The ancient Egyptians worshipped a god named called Ra, whose head was a hawk and wore a sun as the blazing disc on his crown. Don't we see that in the Roman Catholic Church? The little thing that they place the Eucharist in with the sun dial on it? Right. At the solstice, when Ra began to recover from his illness, the Egyptians filled their homes with green palm rushes, which symbolized for them the triumph of life over death. Now, why is this so prominent all around the world, this particular tradition? Because this was the same holiday that was being kept at the Tower of Babel. Keep in mind who was at the head of the mission of the Tower of Babel. Nimrod. Mm-hmm. Nimrod was leading the charge. Now, it was said that when Nimrod died, his wife cut his body into pieces and sent them around the world. Now, Now the one piece that, and then a time came where she called all of the pieces to come back, but one piece was missing. Now that one was buried, and from that place, they say that an evergreen tree sprouted up. So it represented the member of Nimrod.
Wow.
Now, the reason why this particular holiday is celebrated so closely around the world at this time is because this is the same days, these same traditions that they were keeping after Nimrod.
Wow.
Okay. So we looked at the origins of Christmas. We looked at Saturnalia. And we looked at the origins of the Christmas tree. And we also found, in looking at those things, the history of the Yule log and other traditions, right? Now, also keep in mind the Scandinavian version of Christmas, Norse. They spoke about the birth of a new pig. Now, what a lot of people know, I'm pretty sure everybody knows, that ham is the most important part of a Christmas meal. That's also where that came from. Because at that time, the Europeans, they would slaughter all of their animals going into the winter. So they would have meat. One of those meats was pork. So we established that Christ was not born on December 25th. Right? Now we're going to go into the scriptures and show what time of year he might have been born in. Right? Because the scriptures tell us. It's not enough for us to go into history and they say, well, he was probably born around this time, when there's someone making a claim that he was born the same day as not only Nimrod, but Tammuz, Mithra. I'm pretty sure Vishnu was born Vishnu, Krishna, one of the two, they were born that day.
Right.
All of these particular gods born on December 25th. Let's go to Luke chapter 2, verse 1.
Okay. Luke chapter 2, verse 1. Okay. Luke chapter 2, verse 1. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. Verse 2. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, to Judea, and unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child.
Okay, so Joseph and Mary had to travel to Jerusalem to be registered for tax of the Roman government, right? This was done after the Jewish revolt. After the Jewish revolt, prior to that time, they were required to now pay a tax. Taxes were collected at the end of the harvest season, not in the winter.
Right.
But the taxes were required at the end of the harvest season. Why? Because so that they wouldn't have to work for the upcoming 3 feasts, right? Because at the end of the harvest season, going into the fall, you had the feast, you had the memorial blowing of trumpets on the first day of fall, and then you had all the Sabbaths in between as well, and then you had the Day of Atonement, and you also had the Feast of Tabernacles, right? So they didn't want to have to work during that particular time, right? Because work was not permitted,
right?
So after the harvest season, they brought their tax at that time to avoid having to work on those holy days, right? Now they also gave their tax at that time because they would have the funds to be able to give it. If they were to go before the harvest season, chances were they wouldn't have anything to present. They wouldn't have any crops to sell or any tax to present. Right. So as soon as the harvest was over, they knew they had enough to go ahead and pay their tax. Right? It's almost like you don't want to pay a bill before the paycheck. You pay it right after the paycheck. Right? This means that the time that Joseph took his wife took his wife to Jerusalem was either late August or early September. Right? So now we have a time frame. From late August to early September was around the time where he took her to Bethlehem to be taxed. Right? This would explain why there was an overflow and why it was difficult for Joseph and Mary to find a place to stay. Because the Feast of Tabernacles was a feast that required all of Israel to return to Jerusalem. Right? So you have all the 12 tribes at this time, millions and millions and millions of people gathered into one city. And there was an overflow from Jerusalem into cities like Bethlehem. This is why it was harder for them to find places. If you look at the 3 holy days that require us to return to Israel, it's the Passover. We have the Feast of Weeks and the the Feast of Tabernacles. Those are the 3 that we have to return to Israel for. Now, it was at the end of the harvest, so it couldn't be the Feast of Weeks. And that's already past Passover, right? Now, let's get a little bit more information to find out a little bit more as to what time he might have been born in. Let's get verse 6.
Luke chapter 2, verse 6. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered.
So while they were there, she was ready to give birth, right?
Verse 7. And she brought forth her firstborn son.
She brought forth Christ, read.
And wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger because there was no room in the inn.
So there are no room in the inn. So they're basically in a barn. She gave birth in a barn, right? Why was there no room? Because all of Israel came back to Jerusalem, right? Read.
Verse 8. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night.
More proof that Christ could not have been born in the winter. The winter in the Middle East is one of the coldest places at night. It can get to sub-freezing in wintertime at night, right? It's cold enough in the daytime, but at night, it's even worse, right? So why would a shepherd be feeding his flock at night in the wintertime, be watching over his flock? See, Israelites usually sent their flock into the desert around the start of spring. So that's the beginning of the year. At the beginning of a Hebrew New Year, at the beginning of spring, they would send their flocks out into the desert or the wilderness, right? And they would bring them back around October, November time, right? During the time when the flock was in the wilderness, the shepherds would watch over them day and night. Right? So that means that we have a time frame. Like we said, from the time of March, which is the beginning of spring, to October, November. And we've already seen that they're in the harvest season. They're at the end of the harvest season. So that puts us closer to late August, early September, right? Now, what does this tell us, right? It says, so during the time when the flock was in the wilderness, the shepherds watched over them day and night, right? That's why in verse 8, it says that the shepherds were abiding in the field, keeping their flock by night. If Christ was born in December or the winter time, the flocks would have already been gathered in. There would have been no flock to watch.
Right.
They would bring their flock into the pens during the winter time. So if Christ is born in the winter, why would the shepherds be out in freezing weather watching a flock that's not there?
Wow.
Christ was born around the time between memorial blowing of trumpets and the end of Feast of Tabernacles. That's your time frame.
That's right. That's right.
We're looking at the fall, around fall time.
Exactly.
When you look at the history of it and you actually look at the Bible gives you the answers. It tells you where it is. You just have to be able to read and rightly divide the word of truth.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who can look at the Bible and say that Christ was born in winter, I mean, would put it like this, brothers. Would you let your wife give birth outside in 32-degree weather?
Wow.
Just a question. I don't think so.
No.
I don't think Joseph would allow that either. He would have found someplace. Right? Go ahead and read this this quote that we have from an article. It's called "The Other Gods Born to Virgins on December 25th Before Jesus Christ." It was posted on December 8th in 2016, and it was written by Garrett S. Griffin. Read.
The idea that Christ was born on December 25th doesn't appear in the historical record until the 4th century AD.
No existence of it. It's the same thing as with the name Yahweh. They said we ain't find Yahweh in no religious text prior to this time.
God.
It wasn't nowhere in there. Read.
The earliest Christian writers such as Origen, Tertullian, and Irenaeus, and the gospel authors are silent on the subject.
Because they knew that it was impossible that he was born around that time of year. There's no need for them to speak about it because there's already an understanding. It's like, listen, we've all read the Bible, and it says that the brothers was out there tending to the flock. So
Exactly.
at night. So we know we ain't no December birth. Read.
Late December, the time of the winter solstice, in the northern hemisphere is the shortest day and the longest night of the year.
The winter solstice. Read.
Was full of pagan European celebrations. The Roman Empire declared December 25th a holiday to celebrate the birth of their adopted Syrian god Sol Invictus in 274 AD.
So they had already declared December 5th a holy day, a holiday prior to Christ, prior to Christianity. They had already declared December 5th a holiday. Read.
Some 50 years later, Roman Emperor Constantine officially adopted December 25th as the day for celebrating Christ's birth.
He officially said we're replacing Sol Invictus or Mithras with Christ. Now, the question for Christian pastors, because they say, oh, we know that the origins are pagan, but we do it in the spirit of Christ. Who told you to do that?
Exactly. That's the question.
That's the question. Who told you to do that? Well, we know that. Then why do you do the traditions? Why do you put up the Christmas tree? Why do you decorate your house? Why do you do the presents, wrap the presents? Why are you watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? If it's all about Christ and you know the traditions are pagan and it's really about Christ, cut out the traditions then. This was already a holiday. Read.
Before 1000 BC, we have the following gods or demigods born on December 25th.
Before Christ's birth, who are they?
Horus, Osiris, and Attis. Before 200 BC, we have Mithra.
We already know Mithra. Read.
Hercules.
We all know who Hercules is, right?
Dionysus.
Tammuz. Adonis.
And others.
That's not even branching out into the Asian areas. That's not even branching out into East Asia and India. They just mentioned the ones from the East. From the Far East. Some of the characters, read.
Some of the characters you will see below were born unto virgins.
We're also born to virgins. If you go and look at this, this article, it will tell you all of the gods that were born on December 25th. And Christ was not one of them. Christ was not one of them. He's not included. Because prior to the 4th century, it was never even mentioned. It wasn't even brought into question because the understanding was a kid can't be born outside in the dead middle of winter.
I got something here. If you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
This is from the Catholic Encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm.
Says here, in the scriptures, no one is recorded to have kept a feast or held a great banquet on his birthday.
Read that again.
In the scriptures, no one is recorded to have kept a feast or held a great banquet on his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
It is only sinners who make great rejoicings over the day in which they were born into the world.
So we didn't recognize birthdays.
Mm-hmm.
Read.
This is the associated scripture, Ecclesiastes chapter 7 says here, the day of one's birth is better than the day of one's death.
Read. Oh, you switched it.
I did. Oh, that's it. I'm sorry. The day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth. And the end of a matter is better than its beginning.
See, the difference between us and other nations is they fear the day of death. They honor the day of birth because of the fact they honor the day of birth because that's the day that they come into the world, the day that they can come in, abuse, and do what they want. But the day of death is the time of judgment, which is why death is mourning for them, as opposed to Israelites, where death is a short mourning period, but a time of celebration. Go ahead.
That's it.
Right? So even then, like it's not like they didn't know their birthdays. They knew. They knew because they were able to keep track of how old they were.
Right.
You'd be like, hey, bro, dang, you just turned 900 today, man. Another year. We went around here having a party. Hey, let's go get drunk on your 21st. Right? Now, obviously, like I said, it's not a situation where they didn't know their birthday and they didn't feel blessed to see another year. But they didn't make celebration of their birth as they made a celebration of their death. Now, I have another source here because a Satanist spoke about Christmas. And it's interesting to see what he had to say, right? This is from Vice.com. Oh, shoot. One moment. I'm going to pull this up. I used the wrong link.
Is it?
No, that's the wrong link. I put the wrong one in there. All right, so this is Vice.com. The article is titled, "We Asked a Satanist What He's Doing for Christmas." This is back in 2015. It says, "I know it is not the done thing to say, but Christmas is great, isn't it? Even if you're not into the whole nativity story with these three wise men and the Star of Bethlehem and the inexplicable whiteness of all the protagonists, even when you're still probably enjoying and indulging in the occasional festive latte or a momentary feeling of the weight of your heart lift in the first time Mariah belts over Target's in-store radios. Religious or not, Christian or nay, Christmas spreads the message of peace, love, and family that even the Scrooge and the Grinch and my entire Jewish family seem to have worked their way behind." It says that even the Scrooge, the Grinch, and my entire extended Jewish family seem to have worked their way behind. The Scrooge hated Christmas, now he loved Christmas. The Grinch hated Christmas, now they love Christmas. And you know what? My Jewish family loves Christmas too. Wow. Except what about the Satanists? How do we always forget about Satanists? I mean, religions get forgotten about all the time. That's much a neglected religion. Rastafarianism Rastafarianism similarly never recovered from Rastamos. It says, but Satanists worship the devil. That's not one of the religions to go forgetting in a hurry. Mm-hmm. When humanity falls by the wayside and Lucifer stands cackling over our bodies, we'll remember the Satanists then. That's for sure. Wow. Yeah. It says, why didn't we ask the Satanists what they're doing for Christmas? Mm. We'll ask a shallow charnel pit and John Waite, an ordained pastor, a religious manager, and of the UK-based Church of Rational Satanism, will look down at us and say, "You did in that Vice article that the one that read about the Satanists to do what Satanists do for Christmas," and we'll cry, "How we'll cry," as the waves crash and the locusts swarm. Wow! This is the question he asked. Mm. Hi, John. So you're a member of the Church of Rational Satanism. Can you explain a bit of what that means and the uninitiated for the uninitiated among us, right? Mm. So he says, explain to us people who don't know about Satanism what it means for you, right? Mm-hmm. It says, well, Satanism is a broad church with an atheistic view. Mm. With a bit of a jokey nod towards religious Abrahamic religions through rituals and everything like that. Sacrifice. Mm. Wow. The Church of Rational Satanism, or CORS, which I am a part of, just prefers the less ritualistic and antagonistic version of the same satanic philosophy, self-betterment, and more self-aware version of life. We have a few particular beliefs like the 90% and 10% thinking, but apart from that, we are pretty similar to other Satanists. Now, one thing that I want to bring out is the Black conscious community. Mm-hmm. The Black conscious community believes in the 90%, 10% thinking. Uh-huh. They believe in satanic philosophy. Mm-hmm. Mm. It says, okay, I'm going to assume Christmas, the celebration of the birth of the Son of God, probably isn't one of your favorite festivals, right? It says, well, I can't speak for anyone in the church, but speaking personally and from people that I know and have talked to, none of us actually have a problem with Christmas. We recognize it as not a Satanist. We recognize it's not a Satanist festival, but we don't have anything against it. Mm. So the celebration of the birth of Christ is fine with you, is what he asked. Mm-hmm. Well, realistically, Christmas is about as Christian as my big toe. Mm. This is what the Satanist says. He says, well, realistically, Christmas is about as Christian as my big toe. Even though it's ostensibly about the birth of Jesus, it's supposed to be about the birth of Jesus, most of the traditions are actually nicked from pagan festivals far predating the birth of Jesus. So unless you're going to church or going caroling, I don't think there's very much Christian about it. Like even the Christmas tree is a pagan thing. Mm-hmm. If you actually look in the Bible, it says you're not allowed to decorate a Christmas tree. So it's not very Christian at all. Mm-hmm. Wow. So even the Satanist knows the Bible better than most Christians, because Christians have never seen that in the Bible before. Don't worry, we're going to show you. Uh-huh. But this Satanist seems to know the Bible better than you. Wow. He said Christmas is about as Satanist is about as Christian as my big toe. So will you be celebrating Christmas this year? Yeah. I mean, it's not a Satanist festival, but I recognize it as an important time to come to be together with family. And we do it because it's nice for the kids. Mm. So you got a Satanist celebrating Christmas. Wow. Well, he says, what exactly does a Satanist do at Christmas? Well, we probably open our presents in the morning. Then we have a Christmas lunch. My dad's not very well at the moment, so I'll probably go to see him in the afternoon, if not on Boxing Day. After lunch, we'll probably watch a few films, then go for a walk before tea. If it's really nice, we'll go to the beach and have tea on the beach. Not very frightening, is it? The guy says, not very frightening at all. We're all the skulls and devil's horns. He says the dark aesthetic is important to some people, but not everyone does it. I don't do the dressing up or the ritual. I get what it's for, and I appreciate the benefits, but I'm at a time in my life where I don't think it's necessary. So he's saying, I don't sacrifice. I don't do the sacrifices, but I know people who do, and I benefit them from those, so I'm grateful. So I'm not the one sacrificing babies, but Jared over there, he does that. And you know what? We all benefit from it. Wow. Now, this question it says, okay, so would it be accurate to say that you're not anti-Christian? You're anti-God? He says, we're not anti-anything. Like an atheist isn't anti-God. He just doesn't believe in God. That's what a lot of people don't get about Satanism. We're basically atheists. We don't worship anything. So atheists are Satanists. Keep in mind what we said in our past lessons. If you aren't working for the Most High, who are you working for? That's why they consider themselves Satanists, because they have that understanding. They say, well, we don't worship anything, but we call ourselves Satanists because we don't worship anything. Right. So those who believe, well, I'm not in the truth, or you're not working, you're not doing anything towards the kingdom of heaven, guess who you're working for? Wow. It says, are you scared of death is another question. Now, I would suggest y'all, those of you who have the chance to look at that and read some of the answers that this sadistic dude. And the crazy part is that they don't even believe that there's anything wrong with them. Right. They think everything's okay. Wow. Let's get back on topic. It says the Bible does talk about the Christmas tree. It's the main tradition. The main tradition of Christmas is the Christmas tree. And the Bible does speak about it. And when we look back into the history of the evergreen tree, we see it goes directly back to Nimrod in ancient Babylon. This is why the Christmas tree would be written of by Jeremiah the prophet. The reason why Jeremiah the prophet was able to write about the Christmas tree is because it already existed. They're already seeing people celebrating this. Let's get Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 2.
Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 2. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them.
It says, learn not the way of the heathen. That means that if you're supposed to be a part of the body of Christ, or if you're an Israelite, anything that comes from the heathen, don't touch it.
That's right.
Last time I checked, the Christmas tree came from Nimrod. Christmas came from the Romans. Right. Those are Gentiles. Those are heathen. We don't need to have nothing to do with that. It says, learn not the way of the heathen. Read.
Verse 3. For the customs of the people are vain.
They're vain. They have no substance. They have no meaning. There's no point. The customs of the people are vain. Read.
For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman with an axe.
Okay, so back in the day, when you watch your old Christmas movies, you got these dudes that planting they tree seeds every year. They say, hey, January come around, let me go ahead and plant some evergreen trees come around next Christmas. And you can come out and you can chop down your own tree, take it home. Now, it's as easy as going to Walmart and saying how tall you want it. And instead of having to chop it down, all you got to do is put it together. Right? Read.
Verse 4. They deck it with silver and gold, They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not.
Right. So before they would just they'll use the little pieces that to hold it up. They'll use buttresses to hold it up and everything like that. Now we don't got to do that. It has a stand. So convenient, right? It has a little stand to go there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they deck it with silver and with gold.
Mm-hmm.
So people are like, I don't use real silver and real gold. Yeah, but y'all sit around and be like, all right, so what color you want it this year? We got a couple color combinations. We got silver and gold, silver and purple, silver and green. What you want?
That's what we used to do.
That's how we did it. You like, hey, what colors we gonna use this year?
That's right.
We doing burgundy and gold or burgundy and silver.
Oh yeah.
Right? That's how you did it.
God.
So you deck it with silver with gold and you fasten it. Looking real good, right? Classic Christmas tradition. Read.
Verse 5. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born because they cannot go.
It says they must needs be born because they cannot go. You have to pick it up and carry it to move it. It can't speak. It can't walk. It can't talk. It's just an idol. It's a dumb idol.
It's an idol.
Read.
Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil. Neither is it in them to do good.
So it's saying to the people that we aren't to fear the Christmas tree. This is not saying that you see a Christmas tree and you shiver. No, because it's a dumb idol. But there's no good in it either.
Exactly.
It's a wicked thing because it's being served. It's an idol.
That's right.
Right? A lot of people are like, well, I don't look at it as that. It doesn't matter what you look at it like.
That's right.
The scriptures say, make unto you no graven image.
That's right.
And even though you may not view it as an idol, those who invented the custom view it as an idol.
Exactly.
This tradition that surrounds Christmas, this is the main tradition that surrounds Christmas, the Christmas tree. That's the memories when you look back at your old Christmas life. You say, what do you remember most about? Well, putting up the Christmas tree.
That's right.
That's right there.
Yeah.
And the time you dreaded was having to take it down.
Exactly. We'll put ours up Thanksgiving night. That thing stayed up to February, March sometime.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
It says, everybody remembers this. You got all the major Christmas movies, and all the memories, You think about the Christmas tree shopping, and you think about the forest where you go and cut down your own trees, and you think about what present you gonna get for such and such this year, what presents they're gonna get for me this year. Yeah. This is all that nostalgia.
That's right.
Especially when you're your first year removed from Christmas, and you sitting there thinking, wow, man.
Yeah.
Man, around this time we'll be putting up the Christmas tree, right? See, the Most High states that we are not to do what the Gentiles do.
That's right. And
not to be dismayed at the constellations. Now, what a lot of people they don't realize how closely that correlates to this time of year. When he says, do not what the heathen do and don't be dismayed at the signs of heaven. Because the signs of heaven and astrology is directly linked to the winter solstice. Right. It's directly linked to Christmas. That's why at this time of year, everybody's so hyped up on zodiac signs and what the sun is doing and what the moon is doing and how long this day is and how short that day is. Right. All of that has to do with the winter solstice. This time of year is directly connected to Christmas. Right? We aren't to fear these things. But we have to have the understanding that the things that the heathen sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to God. It doesn't matter whether you're intentionally or unintentionally participating, you are.
Exactly.
It's like somebody who about to steal something say, hey, I need you to drive me to the bank. I need you to drive me to the bank. You drive me to the bank, they come out right with some cash and say, go, go, go. You're like, hold up.
Yep.
You still were involved.
One go down, you all go down.
Let's get Isaiah chapter 44.
Isaiah chapter 44, verse 13. The carpenter stretches out his rule.
Mm-hmm.
He marketh out with a line.
He's sitting there, figuring out how he want to do this thing. He's designing. He's drawing a blueprint. Read.
He fitteth it with planes,
Mm-hmm.
and he marketh it out with a compass.
Doing all of this planning. Read.
And marketh it after the figure of a man.
So he's designed a man.
Mm-hmm.
Read.
According to the beauty of a man,
Mm-hmm.
that it may remain in the house.
That it may remain in the house. So he's making himself a personal idol.
Mm-hmm.
Read.
He heweth him down cedars,
Mm-hmm.
and taketh a cypress and an oak, and the oak, Salaki, which he strengtheneth for himself among the trees of the forest.
So he's picking out just the right type of wood to make this thing. Read.
He planteth an ash,
Mm-hmm.
and the rain doth nourish him.
So he planting his own trees. He like, hey, this is for next year.
Mm-hmm.
Do that at Christmas, right? Go and ask your local tree salesman what he does every year.
Mm-hmm.
Read.
Then shall it be for a man to burn, for he will take thereof and warm himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yea, he kindleth it and baketh bread. Yea, he maketh a god and worshipeth it.
He says, then shall it be for a man to burn, for he will take thereof and warm himself. Yea, he kindleth it and baketh bread. Yea, he maketh a god and worshipeth it.
Mm-hmm.
Check this out, read.
He maketh it a graven image,
Mm-hmm.
and falleth down thereto.
He bows before this thing.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing that you're bowing before, you could have used that to hold up the side of your table.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
The same thing that you're bowing to,
Mm-hmm.
you could have used to make a baseball bat. Read.
Verse 16. He burneth part thereof in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
With part thereof he eateth flesh,
Mm-hmm.
and he roasteth roast, and is satisfied.
So this man uses the wood for a fire, keep himself warm,
Mm-hmm.
uses some of it to make silverware,
Mm-hmm.
then goes and then uses it to cook meat.
Mm-hmm.
Read.
Yea, he warmeth himself and saith, Aha, I am warm.
Ah. Look at what this piece of wood is doing for me. Read.
I have seen the fire,
I seen fire. Read.
and the residue thereof he maketh a god,
Mm-hmm.
even his graven image. He falleth down unto it, and worshipeth it. And he prayeth unto it, and saith, Deliver me, for thou art my God.
See, the same reasons why he believes that, why he gives power to this piece of wood is same reason why the wood is stupid, why it's dumb. It's a dumb thing to have as a god.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had to plant it, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Water it, let it water to grow.
Right.
Then you had to chop it down.
Mm-hmm.
You had to decide what you were going to do with it. You had to carve out the god. You had to make the plans.
Mm-hmm.
And then you sit it up there and you're like, look at all you've done.
It didn't have the power to do all of that stuff you just mentioned, but yet you're dependent upon it to deliver you.
The foolishness of not only what the heathen believe, but what our people decide to believe.
Wow.
This dude did all of this work and said, and looks at this piece of wood and says, look at all you've done for me.
Wow.
See, and what this is showing, what Isaiah is talking about here is these lifeless items that we give power to as gods,
Mm-hmm.
even though they don't have any strength or power on their own. They can't walk, speak, and they can't even form themselves. The wood we use to make these items, we grow ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that same wood we using to eat with. Mm-hmm. And we throw out and burn. Right? Many people, especially the Christian church, attempt to justify why it is that they celebrate Christmas. Why it is that they use this Christmas tree. But in the scriptures, we find that anything that needs to be justified outside of the Bible is wicked and evil. Mm-hmm. Why do you need to justify yourself? Mm-hmm. Why is there need for justification for something that's not wrong? Just like usually, when people come and ask me questions about doing something, hey, should I do this or should I do that? And I say 9 times out of 10, if you feel like you need to ask me that, then it's wrong. If you feel like you need to ask me, hey, can I get a piercing from here to here? And you a brother and you ask me, I'm like, if you didn't feel like there was anything wrong with it, you would never came to me with it. Mm-hmm. Right? So just like if I ask you a question and the first thing that you start doing is being like, well, don't come for the Christmas tree. Doggone it. Like, bro, I just asked you if you celebrate Christmas. I'm like, hey, why do you celebrate Christmas and why? Well, you know, God say that you ain't supposed to judge me and meat, drink in respect of a holy day. See, I don't have to justify why I keep the feast. Nobody can come to me and say, why are you keeping this feast? Why are you keeping that feast? I'm like, God said so. Mm-hmm. I don't have to make up reasons why I keep the feast keep the feast. Oh, well, I sanctified it. I sanctified this holy day. Wow. Or God said that I can do this now or there's nothing wrong with it. It's for the kids. I know it's pagan, but it's for the kids. I don't need to do none of that. You ask me why I keep the feast days, check Leviticus 23. There you go. I don't need to cover myself. I come directly from the Bible. Check it. Leviticus 23. Mm-hmm. Esther. Mm-hmm. Maccabees. That's where my feast days are. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't need to justify why I keep the feast days, right? See, those of us who keep the feast days written up in the Bible do not need to justify why it is that we keep these days, because there is a command in the Bible for us to keep it. And the Christians know that too. Right. Which is why they don't attack people for keeping those. They'll be confused. Mm-hmm. They're like, well, we don't have to keep it no more, but why are you keeping it? We don't have to keep it. Right. The only reason why they say that we shouldn't keep it is because we don't have to. Well, if I don't have to, does that mean that I can't? See, this is why the Bible says that this is why the scriptures say that these days they're commanded for us to keep in the Bible, right? It says that Colossians chapter 2 verse 16 says that we are not to be judged in respect of meat, drink, and a holy day. Mm-hmm. That's what that's talking about. Had nothing to do with us breaking the law. Mm-hmm. Or us celebrating Christmas. It had to do with those who were keeping the law. Oh. Actually, I want to get that. I put it in here as a side note. I'm going to pull that up. Because a lot of Christians use this when you talk about Christmas to say, well, you are supposed to judge me for celebrating Christmas. Mm-hmm. Is that what Paul was talking about? Was Paul talking about Christmas? This is Colossians chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse. Beware. This is verse 8. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, mm-hmm. on their own understanding, mm-hmm. after the traditions of men, after the rudiments of the world, mm-hmm. and not after Christ. Mm-hmm. Christmas wasn't established by Christ. That's right. It's a tradition of men. We see that based off of December 25th.
Exactly.
December 25th was established as a holy day prior to Christ even being born. So it says here, so we can show here according to the scriptures that Christmas is a tradition of men.
Mm-hmm.
It says, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the traditions of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. For in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily. And ye are complete in him, which is the head of all principality and power. Right? Now, we're going to drop down to verse 14. It says, blotting out the handwriting and the ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to the cross. Now, what they'll say is that that's the law. It's the doing away with of the law. Mm-hmm. Right? But doesn't the scripture say that the Sabbath isn't made for man, but that's the man isn't made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath for man? Mm-hmm. The Sabbath is a law, and it was made clear that it's not contrary to us.
Right.
So clearly, what's contrary to us is not the law.
Right.
Because Christ kept it.
Right.
After Christ was dead, the disciples kept it.
Right.
And even after the disciples were teaching other people to keep it. Mm-hmm. Right? It says, verse 15, it says, having spoiled the principalities and powers, having made a show of them openly, triumphing over them. In it, what is this talking about? His defeating of death. He took the keys.
Right.
So the only thing that's contrary to man is death.
That's right.
So what he took away was the death that was brought according to the law in this lifetime. No one man can't execute judgment on another man concerning the law. That means that if I see a homosexual walking down the street, I'm not allowed to go and stone that brother. Right. I deliver that brother the truth and let him understand what he's doing is an abomination, that is wicked and that is evil. Mm-hmm. But I am not to attack that brother. Back in the day under Moses, it would have been something different.
Right.
That brother would have got dealt with. But that's the ordinance that was against us. It gives us time to fix our mistakes. Grace. And even then, grace existed according to the book of James. We look in the book of James. Grace existed even with the time of Abraham, of Isaac, of David.
That's right.
David committed a sin worthy of death. Mm-hmm. Grace. Mm-hmm. David ate the showbread. Mm-hmm. That was only permitted for the priest to eat. Mm-hmm. Grace.
That's right.
Because he was hungry. He didn't have nothing else he could eat. He was going to sit there and die. Mm-hmm. Grace. Right? So this is what it's talking about when it says he made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. He took the keys. He now had power over death. So the ordinance that were against us had nothing to do with the law, because the law was created for us. Not us for the law, but for us. Mm-hmm. Verse 16, it says, let no man judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath day. Those are all laws. Exactly. Those are all laws.
That's right.
None of those things that were listed here are separate from the law. Meat, drink, those are all things that how you're supposed to use alcohol. That's in the law. Mm-hmm. What is meat and what is not meat? Mm-hmm. We went over that. What is food? Never once was a pig called meat.
That's right.
This word meat here is specific to only clean animals. Mm-hmm. Any animal that's unclean is not meat. So even this right here isn't talking about pork. It says in respect of an holy day or a new moon or of Sabbath days. That's all law. Leviticus 23. Go read it.
Mhm.
None of those things, when it says the Sabbath day, they didn't know no other Sabbath day. It was only one.
That's right.
So when Paul wrote this, he wasn't talking about Sunday. Don't let nobody judge you about Sunday. There was only one Sabbath day. We was talking about the new months.
Mhm.
There was only one new month. And even then, it's not like Christians keep the Sabbath the way it's supposed to be kept.
Mhm.
It's not like you keep the new months.
Right.
It's not like you keep the holy days. These were holy days. And another question, verse 8, it says, after the traditions of men, right?
Mhm.
So why would it come behind? Why would it come behind in verse 14? In verse 16, and say, and don't let them judge you in respect of Christmas, when it just condemned Christmas.
Exactly.
What is Paul changing his mind?
Mm.
Verse 8, he just condemned the traditions of men. That includes Christmas, that includes Thanksgiving, that includes Halloween, that includes Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, or whatever day you want to throw in there. It includes all of those. He condemns all of them. And then he comes behind in verse 16 and says, don't let nobody judge you for keeping them.
Wow.
When it says judge, it means to put to death.
Mhm.
Judgment in the time of Moses was death.
Mhm.
If you're gay back then, or if you're a lesbian or whatever they want to call it now,
Mhm.
in the time of Moses, your judgment was death. So when it says, let no man judge you, it means let no man put you to death. This is right. These are righteous things,
Mhm.
right? It says, let no man beguile you, dropping down to verse 18, let no man beguile you of your reward. Since doesn't the scriptures give you reward for keeping his law? The reward is the kingdom of heaven.
Mhm.
It says, let no man beguile you of your reward, involuntary humility, and the worshiping of angels, intruding into those which he hath not seen, vainly puffed up, vainly by his fleshly mind, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind, right?
Mhm.
And not holding the head, from which all the body and joints and bands have nourished and ministered and knit together, increased with the increase of God, right?
Mhm.
Now check this out, verse 20. It says, wherefore ye be dead with Christ from the rudiments of the world. Why, as though living in the world, are ye subject to ordinances?
Wow.
It says Christ was dead. That if we are dead with Christ from the rudiments of the world, why, as though living in the world, are we subject to its ordinances?
Mm.
Why? We're living in the world. Why do we have to do what the world does? We're dead in Christ. Why do we have to do what the world does?
God.
Verse 21, taste not, touch not, taste not, handle not, which all are to perish with the using, after the commandments of the doctrines of men. Verse 23. Now people say those doctrines of men. The Christian pastor would say those doctrines of men is the law.
Mhm. Yep.
God established the law,
Yep.
not men. Men established Christmas, though. Verse 23. Which things have indeed a show of wisdom, and will worship and humility, neglecting the body, not in any honor of satisfying the flesh. It may hurt not to keep Christmas. You may not be happy not keeping Christmas, but you have to pull away from it.
That's right.
Right? Touch not, taste not, handle not, which all are to perish with the using. If you remove that part, it says, wherefore, if ye be dead in the ordinances from the rudiments of the world, why, as though living in the world, are ye subject to ordinances, after the commandments and the doctrines of men? It's like, why do we have to be subject to what they do just because we're living in the world?
Mhm.
Why do I need to keep Christmas just because I'm living in the world? Why do I have to keep Christmas just because you keep it? How are you going to judge me for keeping the Feast of Tabernacles, for keeping the Feast of Dedication, when I can't judge you from but you won't let me judge you, or you won't let me say anything to you about Christmas? How can you condemn me for keeping a holy day in the Bible, and you're keeping one that's condemned in the Bible? You can't. You don't try to push judgment off on me for doing what's righteous. You can't kill me under the law for what's righteous. Right? We're keeping whole. We don't have to justify why we keep the law. You do though. You feel like you need to. Well, Christ came and sanctified. It's good for the kids. It's good for the kids. It's good for the kids. Even though the scripture said, don't be taken off by the traditions of men. God didn't come up with Christmas. Wow. Let's get Isaiah chapter 50, verse 20.
Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil.
We all see, according to the scriptures, that Christmas is evil. According to the history, that Christmas is evil. It's wicked. Child sacrifice is done on that day. Sacrifices to the god Mithra, right? It says, woe to them that call evil good and good evil. We're sitting up here showing you the evidence that Christmas is wicked, but Christian pastors go and turn around to their congregation and say that Christmas is a good thing. Knowing good and doggone well what the history is. Well, we know that it's pagan, but we're doing it for Jesus, even though Jesus never asked you to do that.
That's right.
Jesus never asked you to keep a Christian to keep a pagan holiday in reverence of him.
He didn't keep his own birthday.
Christ, before he died, didn't say, "Hey, don't forget to celebrate Christmas." It was Passover. He kept the Passover before he died.
That's right.
Read.
That put darkness for light and light for darkness. That put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter.
These Christian pastors and teachers look directly at the evil and wickedness of Christmas and dismiss it, calling it good. These men and women, because women think they're supposed to be pastors now too, will be utterly destroyed for continuing to preach wickedness to the children of Israel, leading them further and further astray. Mark chapter 7, verse 6. Let's get the words of Christ.
Mark chapter 7, verse 6. He answered and said unto them, well has Elias prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me.
They say we're keeping Christmas in honor of Christ, knowing good and doggone well Christmas has nothing to do with Christ.
That's right.
They honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Your heart is in Christmas instead of your heart being in the word where I am.
That's right.
Read.
Verse 7. Howbeit in vain do they worship me.
It means nothing. The scripture in Amos, it says, I won't smell in your feast.
That's right.
They mean nothing to me. Your music is like ruckus to my ears. Has no melody, no harmony.
Wow.
I don't care how many Christmas songs you play. I don't care who's singing it.
That's right.
Read.
Teaching for doctrines the commandments of men.
Teaching for doctrine the commandments of men. He's calling out the Christian pastors.
That's right.
He says, first of all, you worship me in vain because I never asked you to keep a pagan holiday in reverence of me. That's first of all. And now you're teaching doctrine. You're saying, oh, Christmas Christ is in Christmas, and teaching a whole sermon on Christ and Christmas, knowing good and doggone well that's a doctrine of men. That's something you came up with. Read.
We'll go back a little bit. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, ye hold the tradition of men, as the worshiping of washing of pots and of cups, and any other such like things ye do.
So he's saying, by you teaching the doctrines of men, you're leading my people away from the doctrine that I bring, from God's commandments. What's the commandment of God? The law.
That's right.
The commandment of God is the law. You're leading people away from the law because of the doctrines of men. You got your congregation celebrating Christmas instead of Passover. You got your congregation celebrating Thanksgiving instead of the Feast of Tabernacles.
That's right.
They've neglected God's law for your law.
That's right.
For your tradition. He says, such as the washing of pots and cups, things that we do in our regular in our daily life, washing our hands before we eat. That's not a law.
Nope.
But you're going to try to condemn me as if it's a law. That's a tradition.
Wow.
That's a tradition of men. If you want to wash your hands before you eat, so be it. But don't condemn somebody else for not doing it. I make dishwater. You may just put the soap in the rag. I'm not going to come at you for putting the soap in the rag.
Yeah.
Who am I? If I want to eat with dirty hands, let me eat with dirty hands. It's not a law. He says you taking a custom, a tradition of men of washing pots and cups, trying to punish me for not washing my pots and cups. Read.
Verse 9. And he said unto them, full well ye reject the commandment of God, that ye may keep your own tradition.
You know good and well that you're neglecting the law of God. You know good and doggone well you're supposed to be keeping these holy days. You've been told. I'm pretty sure a majority of y'all Christian pastors have run across one of these videos, seen it, and said, oh, wow, that's true. But you know what? I got a congregation. You know full well you're supposed to be keeping the commandments of God. But instead, you decided that you're going to keep the traditions of men. You know good and doggone well that at this time of year, on December, late November to early December, you're supposed to be keeping the Feast of Dedication. But instead, you decide to skip the Feast of Dedication, reverence Hanukkah, and celebrate Christmas.
Wow.
Don't even let me get started on y'all Kwanzaa people. Read.
Verse 10. For Moses said, honor thy father and thy mother.
That's the law. Christ is quoting the law. He's saying this is what you're supposed to be keeping. He's not quoting. This isn't his own thing. He says Moses said, honor thy father and thy mother. Read.
And whoso curses father or mother, let him die the death.
Let him die the death. That's a law. Read.
Verse 11. But ye say, if a man shall say to his father or mother, it is Corban.
Corban is a gift. Read.
That is to say, a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest, Salaki. By whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, he shall be free.
Now I'm going to give you a modern day example of what that means. Read.
Verse 12. And ye suffer him no more to do aught for his father or his mother.
He neglected his parents. That's not honoring your father and your mother. See, say a brother goes to the NFL. He goes to the NFL. He gets his first paycheck. He gives them $200. Like, hey, don't bother me no more. Or even if I bought you a house and a car, don't bother me no more. And then you can say and treat them however you want because you bought them that house and you bought them that car. And you know what? When the Pharisees come to judge you, he say, I bought them a house and a car. And they say, oh, then you all good then, brother.
Right.
You all good. You took care of them. You had them straight. The scriptures say honor your father and your mother, not for a short while, not if you get them something. It says to honor your father and your mother. That means till death.
That's right.
You just because you bought them a house and a car don't mean you get to treat your parents any kind of way. It says, and ye suffer him no more to do aught for his father or his mother. You're like, listen, They old and stuff, but I don't need to do nothing. I bought them a house about 30 years ago. I don't got to do nothing else for them. That's not honoring your father and your mother. That's a tradition of men. The Pharisees said, not the Bible said. The Pharisees said, well, if you do something really big or you do something for your family, then you're not required to do anything else for them. Not the law of Moses. That's the law of men. And because they were following that, they neglected the law. Therefore, they were worthy of death. Every last one of those Pharisees were worthy of death for neglecting the law, neglecting honoring their father and their mother for this, for Corbin. Read.
Verse 13, making the word of God of none effect through your tradition, which ye have delivered, and many such like things do ye.
And many such like things do ye. Strain at a gnat, swallow a camel. Wow. He says, because of your traditions, you've made the word of God of none effect.
Wow.
Because you say it's okay to eat pork, your congregation is dying. Because you decide, that Corbin is that giving a gift to your parents, a one-time gift to your parents is good enough. Now our elders are dying. Our elders aren't being taken care of or tended to. Because you decide Christmas is okay. And all of these holidays made by men are okay. We've neglected the holy days established in the law. Wow. Neglected our holy days, our law for Christmas, for Thanksgiving. Right? And what our people don't realize, what our people don't understand is that when you let go of Christmas and when you let go of these other holidays, the void that we feel is left empty is filled with the new holy days that are established according to the Most High.
That's right.
Because now not only are you serving the Most High, but you can serve the Most High in good conscience, knowing that you're not serving Satan inadvertently or purposely serving Satan. That same feeling that you get when Christmas comes around, you get that feeling in righteousness, that same spirit, that good feeling spirit from the Most High. Instead of receiving it from Satan, you're receiving it from the Most High. When Passover comes around, I don't know about you, but when a feast day come around like Passover or Purim, you get that same feeling.
Oh yeah.
And we get that feeling every week because guess what? It's a feast every Sabbath. So we get to feel this good all year. You only get to feel this good one side of the year. The other half, you're getting kicked around.
That's right.
Let's go back to Colossians chapter 2, verse 8.
Colossians chapter 2, verse 8. Beware, lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men and after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ.
Christ never once commanded us to celebrate his birth, let alone doing so with the tradition of devils.
Right.
However, Christians try to justify and use their own opinions and philosophy to outside of the Bible to justify them wanting to keep these worldly traditions. They say, well, it's just for the kids. We can keep Halloween because it's innocent. It's just for the kids. Israel must wake up and turn back to the Most High, rejecting these evil and wicked holidays, such as Christmas, before it's too late, because there's a judgment coming.
That's right.
Some who keep Christmas genuinely believe that they are keeping it in respect of Christ. Those people must understand that every holy day in the Bible is kept in reverence to Christ. Right? Since Christ came and died, those holy days written of in Moses in the books of Moses take on a new meaning. So for those people who genuinely believe that they're celebrating Christ and genuinely want to celebrate Christ, and that's what they celebrate Christmas for, they have to understand that that Christ is celebrated in each and every one of our feast days. He's honored and reverenced in every one of our feast days. Why? Because he's in every one of those feast days.
That's right.
So if you genuinely want to serve Christ, do so the righteous way. There's a righteous way to do that. And you can do it much more often.
Exactly.
Right? What we have to understand is that Christ said that the Most High is a spirit, and he must be worshipped in spirit and in truth.
That's right.
That means that you can't have one without the other.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can say, oh, the spirit, we're celebrating Christmas in the spirit of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there still has to be truth. And there's no truth in that. He must be worshipped in spirit and in truth. Let's get that. John chapter 4, verse 22.
John chapter 4, verse 22. Ye worship, ye know not what.
Ye worship, ye know not what. See, that's not only goes for those who know that they're Israel. Mm-hmm. This goes for those who don't know that they're Israel. Mm-hmm. You in Christianity, you're worshiping, you're celebrating Christmas, not realizing what you're worshiping. Just like the Jews in the time of Christ were keeping the feast days, not realizing why it was that they were keeping them. They were keeping them just out of tradition. They made it just another tradition. They didn't know why they were keeping the Feast of Tabernacles. They didn't know why it was that they were keeping the Feast of Dedication. Read.
We know what we worship.
He says we know what we worship. Mm-hmm. We know why we keep these feast days. Read.
For salvation is of the Jews.
Because they all point back to one thing, the salvation of the children of Israel.
That's right.
Read.
But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth.
He said the true worshipers, those who really seek to serve the Most High, they know to worship him in spirit and in truth. Read.
For the Father seeketh such to worship him.
He's seeking those types of people to worship him. He doesn't want those who say, well, I'm keeping Christmas in the spirit of Christ.
Thank you.
Or I'm keeping the feast day just because I know that I'm supposed to keep the feast day. You don't know that you don't have the spirit of Christ behind that feast day. Mm-hmm. Anybody who's keeping the feast days and doesn't do it in reverence to Christ, you're lacking the spirit. Thinking that we just going out to sleep in tents every night for 7 days just because?
Wow.
We doing Passover just because? We just take all the leaven out of our house for 7-8 days just because?
Wow.
In spirit and in truth. That means that you need to have the spirit of Christ, the understanding of why. And you also need to have the truth as to how we do it. Read.
Verse 24. God is a spirit.
He is a spirit. Read.
And they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth.
As in spirit and in truth. We cannot say that we are celebrating Christmas in the spirit of Christ because we cannot worship the Most High and honor Christ outside of truth. Why do you think the Bible? Why do you think the Bible refers to it as coming into the truth or knowing the truth? The truth. You can't say that you're worshiping in spirit and in truth, but you're keeping a lie.
Wow.
You're keeping Christmas in honor of a lie. You might as well just celebrate Christmas without all of the fluff.
Right.
Call it Saturnalia.
Might as well.
Don't call it Christmas. Call it Saturnalia. Don't say that you're celebrating Christ. Don't say that you're celebrating Jesus Christ. Say that you're celebrating Mithra.
Exactly.
Say that you're celebrating Dionysus. Say that you're celebrating Hercules. Just because at least you're in truth at that point.
Exactly. That's the truth.
At least you weren't trying to sit up here and live a lie. You might as well just you can worship it in the spirit of Satan and in the truth. and in the wicked truth that it is.
Exactly.
Don't say that you're in the spirit of Christ when you're sitting over here dealing with a lie, knowing good and doggone well that this is Saturnalia, not anything that has to do with Christ.
Exactly.
At least be in spirit and in truth on Satan's side. All the Most High asks of you is if you're going to do this in spirit of truth on my side. That means my holy days. That means getting rid of that wickedness. Right? Wow. It's the same thing with the truth. Christmas is wicked and it has nothing to do with Christ or the Most High. The same goes for those who keep the holy days. We cannot keep them in truth, but void of the Spirit.
That's right.
That's what Christ wasn't condemning the Pharisees for keeping the law. He was condemning them for the way that they kept it. They kept it void of the Spirit of Christ.
Exactly.
Love thy neighbor as thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. Love thy neighbor as thyself. That the spirit of that was always in the law, they made void by their tradition. They said, well, when you ask the Pharisee, what do you do on the Feast of Unleavened Bread? We get rid of all the leaven. Mm-hmm. Why? We're supposed to. They'll pull out the Bible and say, this is why we're supposed to get the level. This is what it says. Because when we left Egypt, when we left Egypt, we didn't have time to leaven our bread. That's why we eat unleavened bread. Mm. You be like, well, is there any spiritual context? That's the reason why. Not realizing that the leaven represents sin in the spirit, dealing with our spirit man. You can't keep the holy day without the spirit.
Exactly.
So the two need to be together. Right? That's one thing, and that's one thing that you can say about Christians. Even though they're in the wrong spirit, at least they have spirit. A lot of these people in the truth, they become void of the spirit. They become Pharisees. They come into the truth and they forget the spirit altogether. They just start keeping it going through the motions. Mm-hmm. They just go through the motions at some point.
Right.
That's one thing I can respect about Christians. They're void of truth, but at least they have the spirit. And for those of us who were once Christians, it's easier for us to bring those two together. It's easier to say, okay, this in Christianity was right. And then say this over here was right. Let me bring what's right together according to the scriptures. Right? Right? That's how it works. Mm-hmm. The spirit and the truth have to be together. They can't be void of one another. Right. Christ made it clear. He said, whatsoever the Pharisees bid you do out of the law, do it. Mm-hmm. But don't do what they do. Right. If they tell you to keep the law, but don't do it how they do it. Because they're doing it void of the spirit. Mm-hmm. Let's get Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 12.
Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 12. Go and proclaim these words towards the north, and say, return, thou backsliding Israel.
That's what we're doing. Mm-hmm. This is a message to Israel. Put down Christmas. Read.
Return, thou backsliding Israel, saith the Lord, and I will not cause mine anger to fall upon you.
If you keep celebrating Christmas, you will be destroyed. Read.
For I am merciful, saith the Lord, and I will not keep anger forever.
He says, listen, I'm merciful. If you put this thing down, we good. Put this thing down and return to my law, we're good. I'll forget everything that you did in the past. Read.
Only acknowledge thine iniquity.
Acknowledge it. Get baptized. Say, this is what I'm dealing with. Put it in the water and let it go.
That's right.
Read.
That thou have transgressed against the Lord thy God, and have scattered thy ways. And has scattered thy ways to the strangers under every green tree.
Under every green tree. You scattered thy ways to the strangers under every green tree. Mm-hmm. Read.
And ye have not obeyed my voice, saith the Lord. Turn, O backsliding children, saith the Lord. For I am married unto you, and I will take you one of a city and two of a family, and bring you into Zion.
It says, listen, I am married unto you, right? And I will take you one of a city and two of a family, and I shall bring you unto Zion. That's showing that see, a lot of people don't realize this, how small of a number is going to make it through this thing. One of a city and two of a family. Christ said that I'm not come to bring peace, but a sword. I'm here to turn that. There's going to be 5 people divided in that house. It's going to be 3 against 2 and that 2 against 3. He said there's going to be a battle in people's homes. Right. He says, listen, it's going to be, look, you got how many people in your family? talk to all of them. I bet you'll only be one other person, one or two other people. If you're lucky, it will be more than that. Wow. And even still, most likely all of you won't make it. Wow. It's that small. And that's the hard part of throwing seed, being ministers, throwing seed and just watering wherever. Right. Because even though we speak all of these words and we get all of these views, to know that less than a third of those views are actually going to make it. Wow. Yeah. All of those words, turn ye old backsliding children. Return unto the Most High. Saying that as many times as we can for 24 hours as people pass by, and to know that only one person in that whole city received it. Only one of those people are going to make it. Wow. Be that one person.
Wow.
Read.
Verse 15. And I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding.
Read that again.
And I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding.
According to mine heart. The scriptures say that if you love the Most High, you will keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. If your pastor isn't teaching you to keep the feast days, if your pastor isn't teaching you to keep the law in spirit and in truth, you're not dealing with one that's after the Most High's own heart. That's right. That's first of all. Second, hold up. Second, it says that they shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. That's knowledge and understanding that comes by way of the scriptures. It comes by way of the scriptures. If you don't have any knowledge or understanding of the scriptures and understanding of the prophecies that's coming, if you're hearing this information on this lesson right now, and you didn't hear it from your pastor or from your teacher, you're not with the right one. We're not saying that's us. Everybody has their own teacher, right? But I'm letting you know what to look for. Hebrews chapter 6, verse 1, the doctrine of Christ. If they're keeping that doctrine and they're keeping the government that Christ set forward, the elders, the bishops, the deacons, they're keeping that order that was established in 1 Corinthians. They've established a righteous government within their body, and they're teaching you the understanding of the word. That's your teacher. Right. Stick to them.
That's good.
All this bouncing around. The scriptures say, "Be not tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine." If you ascribe to one teaching, learn that teaching. If you have a teacher, learn from that teacher. Right? You can't go watching everybody videos being like, yeah, a hype. And then you watch another video, oh, it's Yahweh now. No, it's Yah. You're just all over the place. Stick with one place. Take the truth that you can get there. And when you find that truth that's within that body, you find a body that's living that truth, go and learn that truth. But the fact of the matter is that you have to be loyal to your teachers. Be honest with your elders. Don't the scriptures talk about vexing your elders. Don't vex your elders. Don't vex your pastors, your teachers. Every week you coming in with something new. It's like, listen, I thought we were teaching you. I thought we were teaching you. We literally just went over the name. We just went over the name with you. And you come back the next week still talking about the name. And then we give you the understanding on that. You come back the next week still talking about another name. We already gave you that understanding. Don't vex your elders.
That's right.
Learn. The scriptures say that I will give you pastors according to my own heart. Understand the spirit of the person that you're learning from. If he's after the same thing as you, if he's seeking the Most High's knowledge and understanding, when you bring this information and say, hey, you may believe in the name Yahweh, but this is the information that I found. They'll look at that and say, this information is valid. We're going to make this change. We're going to make this correction.
Right.
Now, if they can't do that, now you know what to do. But the scriptures say that he will give you pastors according to his own heart. The scriptures say that we see through a glass dimly. We don't have all the understanding. We're still learning.
Right.
Even as we teach, we learn. Right? That's part of being after a man being after the Most High's heart, getting his understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But the scriptures say, which shall feed you knowledge and understanding. So these same men that are coming before you and giving you this information are the same men that are that are in the same position as you. We're servants to the Most High. We're servants to you. Right? You have anything?
No, sir.
All right. Now you have the understanding on scripture on Christmas. A lot of y'all probably hearing this for the first time, and some of y'all are hearing this for the 150th time. It never gets old. Fact of the matter is that we need this every year, especially for those of us who look at our families and none of our families are in the truth with us.
Yeah.
And you're watching them put up the Christmas tree, and you're watching them post on their social media of all your family who's there putting up Christmas trees and all that kind of stuff and participating. Mm-hmm. Christmas is absolutely one where there can be absolutely no compromise.
That's right.
Whatsoever. They invite you to Christmas, you're not going. Right? It's just one of those things. And these are the certain lessons that encourage you to let you know that you are not alone.
That's right.
We all been through it. We've all experienced it. Mm-hmm. We've all come out of Christianity. For the most part, even if you're not coming out of Christianity, you celebrated Christmas or you celebrated holidays. Right? So you're not alone in this. Right? What comes in this time, and that's part of the spirits that are attached. I said this before in a lesson. The spirits that are attached to these holidays are attached to you. They are a part of you. So when we get rid of these things, we get rid of Christmas and that spirit leaves, there's a mourning period. You've lost a piece of what was a part of you. Mm-hmm. Something that was a part of you since you were a kid, since you were born. That's understandable. Mm-hmm. But at some point, the mourning period must end. There's a designated time for mourning. Right? So with that, I want to give all thanks and praise to the Most High, Hashem Yeshai, once again. And our prayers go out, to all of you who are watching this video right now. We care about every last one of you, all the children of Israel, and those who aren't part of the children of Israel who are tuning into this lesson to get understanding. We love you too, right? And sending love and we wish to see you soon to Sierra Leone. How are all of you? Hope you all are doing well. We'll get in contact with y'all real soon. So all we have to say at this point is stay prayed up. This is a heavily demonic and spiritual time. We need to stay prayed up, and we need to continue to remain strong in the word. That's right. And with that, we will say Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.